Welcome back to Morphine Reacts. This will be part 2 of the Lightlark series, sorry. Get those confused all the time. If you remember last time, we left off with Oro and Isla teaming up together after the 25th day, and he told her his theory that there is a heart of Lightlark and that this could be the key to saving the island, and that the island is falling apart because he is dying and his life is directly linked with the island's life. Oro and Isla search the night for the heart. They search through purse plants, which are just like plants that kind of like open up, I guess, like a purse. And they're searching in there to see if the heart could be growing inside. So there's this scene that I really like. And she asks him, how did you find out about the heart in the first place? He said nothing. She casually walked the few feet between them, smiling sweetly. She reached up and flicked his crown just because she knew he hated it the first time. You should tell me, because if you don't, I'm not opening another purse plant. She's so bratty, you know what I mean? So then she tries to convince him. She's like, you know, you want to build a trusting relationship, but then you're not being very trusting. How good is that working for you? And then she looks at his arm, and his arm has like a fucking sickness going up it. And basically, the farther it goes, the more like Lightlark is going to fall to pieces. He did not flinch away from her proximity. I'll take my chances, wildling, he said coolly before flicking her own crown. The movement sent her back on her heels, stumbling a few steps. Her head immediately throbbed. Something in Oro's eyes glinted with wicked pleasure as anger twisted her features. You dented it. He simply turned away and began walking towards his side of the valley. Fix it, she demanded. Wretch, she whispered angrily under her breath. If we weren't paired, I really would gut you. That made him stop. He turned like he had heard every word. She made a gesture at him that she hoped proved just how much she had meant them. Oro frowned and turned back around. He didn't even say anything back because it's below him. So they spend the next 3 nights searching. They don't find anything. On the 4th night, she wakes up from a dream and it's about Grimm. Kind of random, I know, but she had a dream about Grimm where they were gonna get it on and do some things. And then she woke up and she wanders the halls. I think she's gonna get water, and she's wandering the halls, and she comes across Oro and Azul talking in the hallway. Now, remember that Azul is the Sky Isle King. Oro speaks to Azul. He says, your plan is madness. And Azul, like, responds, but she can't hear what Azul says. Oro snarls, you will be sentencing thousands to death. A realm has to die, Oro, Azul finally responded. Isla took a step back, shocked. Right? And because she takes a step back, she makes a noise, and then they're like, oh, someone's listening, and then they go into a room, you know, because she's like so obvious and she just can't be quiet at all. And when I read this, I was like, well, obviously Azul is talking about himself. You can put 2 and 2 together. I hope that you guys got that too. I hope that you guys weren't confused as well, because if you remember, Azul talked about how it was a democracy and he's just like a real chill party guy. And he like seemed sad, and he said, I can't do another sentinel. I can't do another trial. I can't do another, like, in 100 years do this again. I can't do this again. I don't want to do this again. I'm tired. That's basically what he was saying. So obviously, he's talking about his own kingdom. He's talking about ending his life, and therefore by ending his life, he ends the life of everyone in his kingdom. But people will live on. Everyone else will continue to thrive. The curses, you know, the whole curse will be ended and everything will be good, and we don't have to worry about anything anymore, right? But for some reason, Isla's stupid. I think the author really genuinely believed that we were going to believe that Azul was talking about somebody else, but like, we're not stupid. Isla goes, oh, he's talking about my kingdom. He wants to kill me. Based on what evidence? Based on what evidence? But of course, Isla cannot keep anything to herself. Not one thing to herself. This is a problem. We remember with Juniper how she just kind of like told him, oh yeah, I could have beat Oro in that one trial and I decided not to. She just can't keep a goddamn secret to herself. So as her and Oro that night are going to the second location to search some different kind of plants, not purse plants anymore. We've moved past that. Now we're going to move to coffiners. She says, unless you have another ally you're working with, I don't have other allies, he said curtly. Really, she said, not even Azul. Oro looked bored. Eavesdropping is lowly, even for a wildling. So he knew it had been her listening. Good. How is that good, bitch? You made it obvious that you were listening because you cannot keep quiet for the life of you, even though, like, you're basic. How are you an assassin? Basically. I mean, not really. Like, she's not an assassin, but she's as quiet as an assassin, like, quiet as a mouse, can sneak around. No one knows that she's there, blend into the shadows, but then she takes a step backwards and makes a sound. Something ain't added up here. Something ain't added up. What's his plan? She demanded. You promised to protect me from other rulers. Should I be worried? Oro sighed, irritated. He turned to her. Azul is harmless. You, of all people, have the least to worry about when it comes to him. That didn't make any sense. Azul had talked about ending an entire realm. If he hadn't been talking about wildling, which realm was he talking about? She tries to, like, keep insinuating things, and he, like, cuts her off. And he's just like, I will not be talking about this anymore with you. Like, it irritates him that she could be making an accusation just based on what? Nothing? Exactly. Thank you, Oro. So finally she asks, did something happen to him? Seconds ticked by and Isla thought he was going to ignore her again, but then he finally said, Azul lost someone he loved. A partner, she guessed? He nodded. His husband. And that's why I'm like, the fact that Azul never, from this point on, never shows up again, does not get one more word, does not get another conversation with Isla, nothing, just like completely disappears for the rest of the book, is homophobic and it's racist. Now that I know what race he is, it's racist. So she asks if the man that Azul was married to was also a Skyling, which Oro replies, no. It made her think of Oro's brother and the wedding the curses destroyed. Two rulers were set to marry for the first time in centuries and a chance to bring the island together. She didn't want to directly ask about King Egan. Now, if you remember, King Egan was Oro's older brother who was supposed to marry a woman named Aurora, who was the leader, I believe, or someone important to the Starlings. Is marrying between realms common on Lightlark? It has become more common, was all he said. She frowned. How does that affect power? Are they born with only one ability? Which he's like, yeah, they're only born with one. Now he says the entrance to Wild Isle is near. And she's like, well, maybe the plant is on Wild Isle. Wild Isle was where the wildlings used to live before, like, Lightlark literally, like, got the curse and then everyone was forced to flee. She's like, maybe it could be on there. Now, if you remember, wildlings are very in tune with, like, plants, and her power was supposed to be of plants, but she was born powerless for some reason. And he goes, no, it's not going to be there. Everything on the island is dead. And she's, like, really saddened by that fact. Now, she's also sad that Grimm hasn't talked to her for 10 days, which, like, why are you sad? Why do you give a fuck? Why do you care? Why do you care? And she asks about Cleo because the author Alex is still trying to convince us that Cleo is, like, a terrible person. So she asks why Cleo didn't attend the last Sentinel. And Oro says, you should ask her. The two of you get along so well. I'm like, oh my god, he's so funny. Isla is convinced that the first chance that Cleo has, she's going to kill her. She believes that Cleo knows that she snuck into the Moonling Library, and so therefore on the 50th day, when the tributes are allowed to kill each other, that is what exactly Cleo will do. Oro is not convinced. He's like, she's not just gonna kill you just because she feels like it. Like, it would have to be an actual reason. So then she kind of asks him, you know, if we have to kill off one of these realms, why not it be Lightlark, like Nightlark? Nobody likes them, everyone's scared of them, and everyone says they're like demons and death and like so evil, right? And Oro replies, I can't because Nightlark is protecting us from a greater danger. He never explains why. Yeah, that doesn't get explained. Yeah, ever. Not even at the end of the book. So Isla kind of wanders off on her own because she's just like that bitch or whatever. And she comes across this like giant like rose thorny beast flower. And it literally just like grabs her, wraps her in thorns, and then starts like pressing into her really hard. And she flails like a little bitch, and she's like, ah! And then Oro has to save her. Why didn't she bring any weapons with her? I don't know. You think that someone who doesn't have powers would be overly attached to their weapons and like unable to like be apart from them. But for some reason, she didn't have any weapons to fight with. So he like saves her, and she now has all these like giant thorns stuck inside of her. She refuses his help. She's like, do not help me. Do not help take these out. I'm gonna do it myself. Which I'm like, bitch, you already made yourself look like a bitch. I don't know why now all of a sudden you want to be tough about this. Because she's in a lot of pain, he gives her something to bite on. You know what he gives her to bite on? His fucking hand. He gives her his hand. When she opens her eyes and like coming to from like all the pain, she realizes that his hand has like a bunch of bite marks on it. And I was like, that got me. So 5 days go by. Oro hasn't returned to talk to her about anything. So Isla like goes into town, and someone slips a note into her palm, and it reads like, you are in danger. And she turns around and she sees this like wisp of like moonling attire. So she follows this person. She runs into Celeste, and she's like, wait here 1 second, I need to figure this out. And she continues to follow the person. Guess what? It's an ambush. So it's basically a bunch of moonling nobles. They crowd around her and they put her in like handcuffs, but they're like made of water because they can manipulate water. Well, they can heal with water, but apparently they can just do a bunch of different things with water as well. So she can't break free. And you'd think, you know, someone who literally grew up in the middle of the forest, who had to like be left in the middle of a hurricane and was made to like find her way home, was left hanging from a tree for 5 hours, that this person who was raised with a sword in their hand since the moment they were born, that they would be able to fight back a little bit, even if they're cuffed, that they would be able to fight back. But instead she goes, oh, if only I had powers, then I could do something. This bitch is so annoying. Long story short, Celeste followed her and frees her. They left a message on the wall as a message to Cleo, because they think that Cleo sent her nobles to go and hurt Isla. So it said, try harder, on the wall. Grim happens to come across her, and she goes, show me Wild Isle. And she goes, and there's called this place of mirrors, and it's like this house, but it has like a bunch of reflective shit inside. I don't know. She basically finds this like little cubby in there that has this swirl mark. Now that's important because remember how I said that she has a star stick that she can use to go to different places? That star stick was found in her room under these panels, and in these panels there was like this swirl symbol. So then she goes, oh, that's the same one that was in my room. Now that little cubby actually belonged to her mother. So the star stick, she believes, was her mother's. So she finds this little like cubby and she goes, I'm gonna break into it. And she tries and she fails. And from this point on, okay, that's like chapter 28. From that point on, it is never mentioned again. She tries everything to unlock this cubby and it doesn't unlock, and so she just forgets about it. For some reason, this bitch is stupid. And she doesn't think to herself, I'm just gonna like take an axe and fucking hack this bitch open. She just like gives up. Oh. Being the idiot that she is, she goes to Juniper and tries to ask, oh, the place of mirrors, is there anything in there that like wasn't open? Like, do you know how to open something in there? Why would you trust this barkeep with that kind of information? Like, that just is so ridiculous to me. And then he goes, no, I've never heard of anything like that. Anything that was worth pillaging was pillaged like a long time ago. So on her way out of the bar, she runs into Grim. Grim says to her, how do you think that dress would fare in the rain? I'm like, bro, he's such like a I'm sorry. He's not hot. He's not like enthralling. He's just a whore who like flirts with her every chance that he can get. So she's kind of like conflicted with herself because she's like, I shouldn't even be talking to Grimm. Why am I still talking to him? It's the author's way of trying to be like, oh, she's attracted to him, but I'm not attracted to him, so I don't want to read about it. But she asks him, she goes, what were you doing when the curses were cursed? He goes, I was in bed. She goes, you were sleeping? He goes, no. When I left my chambers, everything was burning and all of the rulers were dead. I was a ruler of a realm when all I had ever been trained to be was a warrior. And she goes, I know what it's like to have responsibility you never wanted and never thought you deserved. Shut the fuck up, bitch. I don't want to hear your shit. Then she's kind of like, I want you to show me your power. As fast as lightning, he turned, hand shooting in front of him, and darkness erupted in a violent line. A wall of ink that rippled like water, peaked like flames. It whipped right past her, inches from her face. She stumbled back, the force of it almost making her fall over. As quickly as it had struck, the darkness dissolved. Isla took an unsteady breath. In the places the night had touched, life had been ripped away. The grass sat charred and matted. Trees were reduced to hulls that decayed into ash right before her eyes. If that power had been unleashed on a human, she could imagine their skin would melt right from their bones. Grimm went still when she trailed 2 fingers over the back of his hand, against her better judgment. Show me more. He grinned and gripped her by the waist. They shot off the cliff to the sand below, and this time Isla didn't scream because somehow they had skipped the entire middle of the jump. He can like basically transport. He's worried. He's worried that this show of power has scared her and that she wants nothing to do with him anymore. Something that I hadn't mentioned because it really wasn't important before was that he can feel emotions. He can feel people's emotions. And so she goes, tell me what I'm feeling. You're feeling intrigued. His mouth was suddenly at her ear. I could open a black hole that would swallow the beach. I could turn the sea as dark as ink and kill everything inside of it. I could demolish the castle brick by brick from where we stand. I could take you back to Nightshade with me right now. His voice was as deep as dreams, as dark as nightmares. I could do all of those things, and I might, if I didn't think you would hate me for it. What about staying away from me? His lips are right above hers now, his words practically pressed against the corner of her mouth. I gave it an honest effort, but it turns out I'm not that honest. And then suddenly she's scared. Suddenly she's scared from him, and she realizes how foolish it was of her to trust him, and that this display of power has actually like frightened her, and that kind of like saddens him. And so he goes, all right, I'm just gonna take you back to the castle. So 8 days after that, Oro finally shows up. He goes, I found a creature that will speak to us. Remember how he said he's scared of the creatures because of her wildling power, and these creatures feel like they've been abandoned by the wildlings. So he's been very hesitant to contact them until now. So they basically find a ghost. They find a ghost, and he goes, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention to you, Isla, this ghost wants to use your body because it's a ghost and doesn't have a body. And then she's like, what? And somehow he convinces her to do it. While they're there, there is a blue bird that like goes up to her and squawks in her ear really loudly and then flies off. That's important. We'll get there. So basically she agrees because she goes, you know what? I'm gonna use this to my advantage. I want to go inside the sun library. And he's like, okay. And so the specter uses her body, and when she comes to, the specter is like right up in Oro's face. Like, it's very clear that the specter was trying to seduce Oro. So when she could snap back into her body, she's like, all right, I'm gonna go to the library right now. And he's like, we're not going right now. I said that I would let you into the library, but I didn't say when. And she was like, oh, hell no. She's like, I'm going into that library whether you want me to or not. And they get a clue, I guess. The heart isn't on Star Isle. So they're like, okay, I mean, I guess we're closer to where we need to be, but I wish you could have given us some more information other than that. She's like, I literally let you use my body, but sure, okay. So Isla does as she said that she's gonna do. She just shows up at the library, and she's expecting resistance. She's expecting the staff to be like, the king said you're not allowed in here. But they go, oh, we've been expecting you. Come right on in. And they lock her in, and she's there by herself. Isla takes off. She searches for it, immediately finds the hidden room. It's in like the fireplace So she walks in these like fake flames and ends up into this other room. Relic's not there. So she's like, maybe there's a hidden library. Bitch, we already know where it is. We already know it's in the fucking cupboard that you don't want to check. That shit pisses me off. I don't know why Alex is trying to be like, oh, where is it? So mysterious. Bitch, we already fucking know where it is. God. So now it is the 50th day. Now, if you remember, the 50th day means that they can now kill each other, but just not their partner. But now they can kill each other. And remember, one of the kingdoms have to die in order for the curse to be undone so that everyone can go off and live happily ever after. But obviously no one wants to make that choice. She kind of dances for a while, puts on a fake smile, then she walks out on a balcony, I believe, and she runs into Grimm. And Grimm is like, let's go. And they go, and then they're kind of getting like a little hot and steamy. Okay, like he's pressed up against her and she's feeling all these emotions, and then he stops everything and he gives her a necklace and he says, tap on the necklace and I will come for you immediately, like, and I will come and protect you. Grimm, I can't wear this. It would be a statement. Oro had already suspected that they might be working together. This would all but confirm it. She couldn't do anything to compromise her and Oro's alliance. Not when it seemed like the only chance to break hers and Celeste's curses. I know. Two of his fingers pressed against the chain against her neck and it went invisible. She looked up at him, didn't know what to say, wanted to thank him, but the words formed and died in her throat. Grimm reached towards her again, all restraint gone. He trailed his knuckles down her cheek, the necklace, her collarbones, down the center of her chest. Heart eater, he said gently, you don't know what I'm thinking. He finally answered. Her body tensed in anticipation, taut like an arrow, a moment away from careening through the air. She wanted his hand lower, higher, everywhere, but he dropped it instead. He did not touch her again on their quiet walk back to the ballroom. And when they get back to the ballroom, everything goes to hell. Remember how I said that Lightlark is dying? Well, now it's falling apart. Like a crack appears in like the middle of the floor and people are just dying left and right. The castle's falling apart and Oro can't do anything. He's literally on the floor in pain, unable to get up and help anyone or save anyone. And because she doesn't have powers, of course she can't do anything to help. And you would think after this that they would question her and be like, this whole thing was falling apart and you did not show your powers and you did not help anyone. You think that they would be upset with her, like someone, especially Cleo, who doesn't like her, would say something, but no one says a word. So as her and Oro are heading to the next location to search more plants, she asks about the heart. Oro replies that it was made during the creation of the island and contains pure concentrated energy from its creator. Who created it? Horus Ray, which is his ancestor, and Cronin Malvir. I hate that last name, bro. It's so dumb. He says, did Grimm tell you that? He did. He's much more forthcoming than the other rulers of the realm. Is that all he told you? Oh my god. I'm like, what? Tell me, Oro. Tell me, what is it? What's that supposed to mean? Ask Grimm. He's the most forthcoming ruler. Sounds like someone's a little jealous. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I love a little jealousy when it's not like, why are you talking to him? Don't talk to him. He's just kind of like, he doesn't approve, you know? He's just like, why would you pair up with him? But like, none of my business. So they're like climbing up this thick lattice of like wood tree trunks, and a hand reaches and pulls her through into an endless maze of wood. She was trapped again. Release her, Oro says sternly. People who have long transparent wings that hung limp at their sides. Their skin was light blue, like someone had stuck a paintbrush in the air to get the color. Their eyes were too large, their limbs too long. None of them moved. Now, there's nothing more than I hate than an author who just drops a villain into the middle of everything and just expects you to be okay with that. Because this bitch never comes back. He never comes back. This man shows up with all of these winged people who can't even fly, and Oro knows who he is. And for Isla to be asking all these goddamn questions all the time, she never fucking asks about this guy. And if she does, she only asks once, and she never asks ever again. For some reason, that's not important to her. Who attacked her is not important to her. So I'm assuming that these are creatures that felt abandoned by the wildlings, and that's why they are attacking. But what's so weird is that they're never mentioned again. A sword slices across Oro's throat. Not like deep enough to like kill him, but like I was like, not my Oro. Not my Oro. And somehow like Isla gets like free a little bit to throw one of her daggers. Now she has daggers. Now she has weapons. Where were they before? I have no idea. So she sends one flying towards the main villain guy, and Oro literally catches it mid-air and stops it from hitting him. And apparently this was all part of their plan. Oro says she knew she would pick your interest enough to get us into your hive, and I knew that you would be prideful enough to believe that you could capture us so easily. Now tell us where we can find the island's heart. He almost growls. Oh, do that in my ear. The winged guy kind of makes it clear that he knows that Isla doesn't have powers. He says, she certainly is a surprise, more than you know. How does he know that? In exchange for the guy telling Oro where the heart is, the man wants the wildling, which is Isla. Before Isla can make a move, Oro's hand was at the man's neck and it was covered in flames. Oh my god, oh my god. They danced in the man's eyes as he calmly said, I want the wildling to visit me. Once this is all over, she will come willingly, I assure you. Isla stepped forward before Oro can make another move. Done. Now tell us where to find the heart. I'd at least like to get a wink of sleep tonight. She always tries to play it cool, but like she's the most obvious person in the world. Isla began to climb down, but Oro stumbled through one of the openings and grabbed her before falling. He soared for a while, breathing a little too fast. His blood stained her cheek, her hair. He glanced at her. His eyes were bloodshot. Had he been sleeping at all? They closed for a moment. Then they began to fall. They hit the trees. Isla screamed. So they go all the way to the ground. He basically puts himself underneath her to protect her from the fall, like a man would do. She goes, well, the sun's gonna come up and I obviously cannot pick up this hulking man and bring him back to the castle because it's really far. So instead, we're gonna go inside this cave. Now she has the opportunity, because remember, he cannot step out into the light. She has the opportunity just to leave him behind, but she doesn't. She chooses to stay there with him. And when he wakes up, he's actually confused why she would choose to stay there with him. And so while they're in the cave, they play a game where they ask each other questions, which is just a really lazy way for the author to get information to you without it being like very complicated. And she asks, do you think it's possible for a ruler to love another ruler? And he says, no, not truly. And that like makes her really sad because she really wants love, and so that makes her really sad. So she says, your brother really wasn't in love with his bride-to-be? Oro shrugged a shoulder. Egan loved Aurora, but not in that way. How would you know? Oro met her gaze. They didn't share abilities. Falling in love meant sharing access to one's power with their beloved. That's what made rulers falling in love so dangerous. And this can happen without them even realizing it. Without them even like professing their love or getting into a relationship. If they fall in love with someone, that person has access to their power. They may not know about it, but that's what makes it so dangerous. He asked her, did you know Grimm, the previous sentinel? She goes, no. She says, I'm not working with him against you, don't worry. So she shifts the subject. She goes, what's your favorite part of Lightlark? He scratched the side of his head just below his crown, which doesn't make sense to me is why they always be keeping their crowns on. Like all the time. Like they'll be in the most like perilous situation, but gotta keep that crown on. There's this secluded stretch of beach on Sun Isle along a cliff with giant coals in the water that sizzle when the sun hits them. He lifts his gaze, eyes on the ceiling. The sun is a strange shade there, dark green, the color of your eyes. I was like, this man is in love, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Sounds beautiful. You're singing, he said simply. She blinked. What about it? And he goes, tell me about it. And she's like, oh, it's just something I've always been good at. And he's like, oh, like fighting with a sword? And she's like, no, like I actually hated that. I was forced to do that. I hated it. It was horrible. But singing, I loved it. And she asks him, is there a relic on the island that can break any bond? And he says no. And he goes, was that what you were looking for in the library? And she goes, yeah. Because she can't keep a fucking secret to herself. So she asked him, how long have you been able to gild? And if you remember, he turned an entire table to gold. Since I was a child, I was told to hide it. Egan was the eldest, the heir. He was supposed to be the strongest, but he couldn't gild. He nodded. And because he's dying, he's like, you know what? Might as well just like might as well just tell everyone I can gild. Might as well not hide it anymore. Like, who cares? So then he's like, so what was your secret? And if you remember his demonstration, it was to show your greatest secret, and then whoever told their secret would win the demonstration. But none of them wanted to tell it except for him. And his secret was that he was dying. Her secret is that she has no powers, and obviously she doesn't want to tell anyone that. So then he changes his question and he goes, why did you let me win the duel? And she goes, I didn't want to be a target. Then she asks him, what's his flair? Now this is a random piece of information to be added so at the end of the book. I don't even know why it's added so far at the end. But basically a flair is like a secret hidden power, another hidden power. We don't know anyone else's flares. We're gonna learn Nightshade's later, but besides him, we don't get to know anyone else's flares. And Oral's flare is that he can tell when someone is lying. He can literally like feel it that they're lying. So every time she's tried to lie to him, he already knew. And he confesses that he doesn't want the power of Lightlark. He's like, when we find the heart, you can have the power. And he's like, why would you give it to me? He doesn't really explain why he would give her the power. He just would. So now that he's better, okay, now he's going to fly them out of the cave. And of course you remember how she reacted the first time she was flown. It was not very well. I'll go slow, he said, surprising her. Isla gave him a look. Slower, he amended. If you drop me, you will gut me. I am aware. Then she was in the air. She buried her face in his chest, scrunching her eyes against the wind. His hand was splayed across her back, his grip a bit too loose for her comfort, so she clung to his neck tightly. You know, he said into her ear, I used to wonder how wildlings carved hearts out with only their nails. Now I know they're as sharp as daggers. I wouldn't have to cling so much if you held me properly. Oro shifted his hands. Suddenly, instead of being loosely held in front of him, she was cradled against his chest. Her entire body warmed from his heat. It was almost comfortable. Better? He asked. She expected his tone to be mocking. It wasn't better. See, it like matters. Like, he's been a bitch this entire time, and then like when he's like actually sweet, it just hits different. It hits different. It just hits different. Oh, so I was wrong. Now is when the bird squawks in her ear. For some reason, I thought it happened when he made Isla give up her body to the specter. I thought that was when the bird squawked in her ear, but no, it's right now, because now they are on Moon Isle. It's snowing, super cold, obviously. So she's like freezing. He's like, I can warm you, and she refuses because she's an independent woman. She don't need that. In a quick sweep, he removed his cape and draped it around her. It was so large, it wrapped around Isla like a blanket. She wanted to reject it, but the moment it touched her skin, her body was flooded with heat, and it seemed to melt through her bones. Are you all right? He asked, as if the idea of hypothermia and dying of cold had never once crossed his mind. I'm fine, she said quickly. Thank you. So they are here on Moon Isle to talk to an oracle. Yeah, another creature, an oracle. Only one thawed in the last 1,000 years. Why are they here? Oro stepped to her side. A king far before me trapped them in ice so they would never leave or die. 3 women born with the gift of prophecy, enraged at being imprisoned. 2 of them joined forces with Nightshade, calling to the dark part of the island. When Night Isle was destroyed, they froze forever. So this is a place where darkness meets light. They believe that the heart blooms where the darkness meets light. So they're looking for any place where Nightshade and Lightlark power have both been used at the same place. The oracle is very misleading, very riddly, as most oracles are. The only thing that she tells them is there are 3 places. So she gives them like a little bit more to work with here than the last bitch. And of course, it has to wait until tomorrow because the sun's coming up. And at this point, I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting annoyed because every single time we feel like we're making a little bit of progress. Oh, we have to wait until tomorrow. Oh, these days we're doing this. Oh, we're just... And the only thing that is getting me through this book, The only thing that's getting me through this book is Oro. That is it. That is the only reason that I continue to read this book. So when she gets back to the castle, she breaks the promise she made to herself. Apparently she made herself a promise that she wouldn't check on her guardians, Poppy and Tara, who had raised her in the absence of her parents. But then she goes back on that and she uses her star stick to just look, not to go into, but just look to see what's happening. And everyone on her island is becoming one with nature. She's like, oh my god, like I'm too late. I've already failed because now my people are literally going to die before I even have a chance to save them. And in this moment of weakness, she tells Oro that she has no powers. The next day, Oro tells everybody. He goes, yeah, Isla doesn't have any powers and I want to team up with Cleo instead. And she goes, oh my god, like I can't believe. And of course we're kind of like, okay, well there's a reason he did this. Like he's not just gonna do this. He's not just like a backstabber for no reason, right? And because now everyone knows that she doesn't have powers, now she's worried that people are going to come for her. So Grimm immediately grabs her hand, makes them disappear, and she asks him to take her to the palace of, or the place of mirrors. I keep saying palace. He takes her there, and so she's just like hanging out there for like a few days, literally feeling like really sorry for herself, because now she feels like there's absolutely no way that she can save her people, and everyone knows that she doesn't have power, so now everyone's gonna try to kill her because now it's after the 50th day, and she's like, so sad, right? Of course Grimm is like trying to be there for her, and Celeste does visit her, and she's like, get off of your ass, like get up, bitch, get up. And so she's like, you know what? I'm gonna write Juniper a letter. Juniper the barkeep. I'm gonna write him a letter and say my biggest secret in exchange for yours. She's like, okay, all these bitches already know my secret, right? They already know I don't have power, so now there's no point in keeping it. So she's like, Juniper can give me a piece of information to find this bond breaker or anything like that. If you can just help me, that would be great. And so she writes him a letter, and then she goes to check on him, and he's dead. And remember how she left a message when those moonling nobles tried to kill her and said try harder? This one said hard enough, which is a little sus, to be honest. Hard enough? So Isla's on this cliff talking to her mom as like the sun goes down, and I literally just skipped it because I was like, boring, don't care. And she sees Cleo walking away, so then she's like, I'm gonna follow this bitch. And so as she's like walking, she sees Cleo open up this like hole in the ground, and then that bird, remember the bird that squawked in her ear? The bird shows up, okay, and squawks and won't stop squawking. The bird is a spy for Cleo. Yes, I know, we didn't see that coming. And so Cleo's like, oh, you were following me. Well, I'm gonna kill you now. And she doesn't say that explicitly, but she like freezes her in ice. And so the ice is like starting at Isla's feet and slowly like inching up her body until it like completely encases her. Now, there are some people that find Isla, and they say, we will make a broth from her bones that will fill us with power. We'll burn her hair and inhale the smoke to make us beautiful again. And they mention Thrayer. I don't know who Thrayer is. It might be the guy from like the nest of like weird winged men. It might be him, but I have no idea. And she sees that a moonling is helping them. So it might be the same moonling that we saw at the beginning that kind of tricked Isla into meeting with the nobles, that like handed her over to the nobles in exchange for money. Might be that same moonling, but I'm not sure. And the bird is still squawking, and they say, shoot the bird, it's making my ears bleed. So obviously they're not working for Cleo. It says, one of her captors screamed, and the heat of flames roared past her face. The smell of stars shattering, something nearby, blood splattering against her skin. The one holding her dropped her, and before she landed on the ground, she was in the air. So you're going, okay, fire and star shattering and being in the air. It's Oro, like immediately. So of course she's like pissed to see Oro, because she's like, you literally betrayed me. And he's like, I didn't betray you, but I needed you to believe that I did to make it more believable. He was like, I needed to get some ice moved or something to go look for one of the places for the heart. So I needed Cleo. Cleo is the only person who had the ability to do that. By betraying Isla, and empowered Cleo, made her feel important so he could use her to do what he needed to do. He also tells her that my sources told me Cleo has become increasingly convinced that the Starling must be the one to die. So Isla was never even in danger. Remember how I said like Isla kept trying to convince us, oh, Cleo's bad, Cleo's trying to kill me, Cleo Cleo was trying to go after the Starling because Starlings only last 25 years, so just kill her off. Her fucking kingdom isn't well developed anyway, so who cares? He purposefully paired up Cleo and Celeste just so that Celeste wouldn't get murdered immediately by Cleo. So he's very smart and very strategic. He says, tonight I went to meet her. You slipped through the cracks by trailing her. She has been forming a secret legion. The heart is on her isle. If she gets hands on it before us, I'm afraid of what she will do. So Cleo is a threat, but not in the way that Isla was trying to convince us that she was. And he still is like, when we find the heart, you will be the one to wield its power. And she immediately trusts him again. Immediately trusts him again. And she's like, if you betray me again, I will cut out your heart and eat it. All right. So now Isla is convinced that Cleo is the one who spun the curses. You remember how she thought it was Grimm, and then Grimm said one thing and then she changed her mind? Well, now she believes that it's Cleo with all of her fucking heart. I am still not convinced, okay? Look at this face. This face is not convinced. You have not, this author is not doing a very good job. You keep telling us things. You keep telling us how to feel about things, but you're not showing us why we should feel that way. So in spite of her entire island of people literally turning into flora, she decides that now is a really good time for her to take a day off. I wish I was joking, but and so she drinks a glass of wine, and in her drunkenness off of one fucking glass of wine, she happens to run into Oro. She's trying to find her way back to the palace, and she runs into Oro. Now, Oro's been kind of keeping an eye on her, been watching over the place of mirrors and everything, just to make sure that she's safe. Finds him, and she's like talking to him while she's drunk. And she decides to make tea of all things, because apparently she's just a tea girl. And so she makes tea, and she says, I have honey in my head. And that makes Oro laugh. And that's the first time he's like genuinely laugh. But he laughs as she's like falling into like a drunken sleep. And when she wakes up, she's laying on his lap and he has fallen asleep. And I was like, that's cute as hell. Oh my God. But she wakes him up because she's like, he's the king, so he needs to at least attend a little bit of the celebration. And they're being very like serious, you know, they're like 2 more places to search. And they're like, good. It's like kind of awkward now, like between them. And that's when Ella, which we probably have forgotten about her. Ella is the servant girl that is assigned to Isla. She shows up and she goes, one of the rulers has been put in a coma. And we're like, which one? And it's Celeste. And so of course Isla is pissed. And now she's like, not only am I fighting for my people, but now I'm fighting for my friend. I'm more motivated than ever to find the heart. I'm like, you weren't motivated before? Like watching your guardians literally turn into like the forest wasn't motivation before? God damn it, dude. So of course Isla thinks it's Cleo because Cleo wanted to kill Celeste, so it must be her. They go to the second location. Remember, he's already searched one of the 3 locations with Cleo. And it's like in a tower, but the part of the tower is like underwater. So Oro begins to take off his clothes, as one does when they see an underwater tower. So it says, more than half of him had now been overcome by the bluish gray. The bluish gray is the sickness that is slowly killing him. He was part gold, part ice sculpture. She studied him, wondering if it hurt to lose one's powers, to die slowly inch by inch. She stared for other reasons too. Me too, girl. Oro stared back at her, surprised. I'm sure you've seen plenty of bodies before. Because if you remember, a wildling is supposed to be a temptress. So she's supposed to have like a lot of bodies under her belt. And she's like, of course I have. But she's a terrible liar, because of course she is. And she knows that he has a flare, and he can tell that she's lying, so I don't even know why she would bother lying. He goes, tell me, wildling, how many people have you been with? Her face flushed. What kind of question is that? In her realm, love was forbidden, but intimacy was not to shield away from. It was celebrated. I've been with many women, he said. It's not something I deny. Isla sneered at him. Well, that must have been a long time ago, judging from how uptight and insufferable you are. The sides of Oro's mouth twitched, amused. That might be so, but you didn't answer my question. And I won't, she said, glaring at him. He grinned. Was he laughing at her? Oh my god, I love a man who's just like a bitch. I love it. I love it. Don't be nice. Don't be nice to me. Be a fucking asshole. To wipe the smirk off his wretched face, she unbuttoned her cape and let it fall to the floor. She slipped off her oversized shirt and pants. She wasn't in her underwear, but only wearing scraps of fabric. She felt bare in front of him. Oro stood very still. She shrugged, trying her best to look carefree. It's just skin, she said, her voice slightly breathless. Just skin, he repeated, his mouth barely moving. Oh my god! He is so in awe of her, bro. Oh my god. And then she goes into the water. And when she goes into the water, of course, there's like some kind of wildling creature down there. And it's like a siren where it kind of like gets into your mind, not through their voice, but just through their like mind powers. And so like it's trying to drag her down, and like it slices at her stomach when she tries to like fight back. And of course, you know, Oro saves her, as he does. And he heals her wound with his moonling powers. Remember, they can use water to heal, like a waterbender. And of course, he's like, it wasn't there. I searched for it and I couldn't find it. Why did she even have to go in there? Like, he could have searched the ship by herself. So was she just bait, basically? So there's only one place left, and it's in the middle of Vinderland territory. And of course, she doesn't know what that is. So he's like, the group that tried to kill you. So I'm guessing it's the people who found her in the ice. Who were they? She asked. I thought you knew. They were wildlings. There aren't any left on the island, and they were men. There aren't any left. They were wildlings. The group left your realm long before the curses. They had already renounced their power, so their kind wasn't affected. So they ate hearts out of desire, not because of a curse. So that's where this like rumor that wildlings are just animals and they like eat flesh and they're like evil, that's where that comes from, because a long time ago they deflected. So they go all the way to the other location. They get there and they don't find anything. And she literally starts crying because she's like, oh my god, this is the last location. We searched it. I didn't find anything. What the fuck do I do now? What do I do? And so she's like, please, Oro, tell me everything you can about the heart. Like, let's just go back to the beginning and redo this all over again. And while he's telling her, he basically reveals to her a very important piece of information, okay? You remember when Grimm told her that his ancestor and Lightlark's ancestor, which is Oro's ancestor, both created the island? Well, there was another piece of information that Grimm was not telling her on purpose. So Oro's like, you know, I thought that Grimm would tell you at some point, but it's obvious that he hasn't. And he reveals that there was a third person to create the island, and it was her ancestor. And apparently the island is named after her ancestor, is named after, get this, Lark Crown. That's her name, Lark Crown. I literally want to shoot myself. And so that's also another reason why Oro wanted to work with her, because of her ancestor, because he knows this piece of information that other people have forgotten about history because it was just so long ago. The part of the prophecy is only join the curses can be undone. So he's like, one of us has to be able to do it, and I would rather work with you than work with Grimm, who is a liar. In this moment of just like not finding the answer even after all this time, she visits Celeste. And remember, Celeste is in a coma, like kind of like floating in a coma. And what doesn't make any sense is Grimm literally hid Celeste, so I don't even know how Isla knew where Celeste was, but somehow somehow, even though she's invisible, she grabs Celeste's hand and she's like, you're right about the hidden library, like talking to her. And then her friend's palm opens and a diamond ring falls on the floor. Now you remember in the beginning of the book, Isla gave Azul a diamond ring. Yes, bitch. Azul poisoned Celeste. Even though, like, he hasn't even been here. He hasn't appeared once. And so she runs into Grimm. And of course, he's like, are you hurt? Like, what's going on? And she confronts him. She's like, why didn't you tell me that one of my ancestors was someone who created Lightlark? And he says, some things are better uncovered ourselves. There are many things that others told me that I would prefer to have learned on my own in time when I could understand it all better. You just arrived somewhere new, not knowing much, forced to carry the burden of the curses to represent your entire realm, powerless. You were terrified. I couldn't make it worse. I didn't want to. Not your choice to make. That is not your choice to make. I'm so mad about this. It's not his choice to make. He literally called her powerless. He had no faith in her because she didn't have any power, so he didn't want to tell her this piece of information. Dude. And guess what? Guess what? She sleeps with him. He tells her that he's lied to her, that he didn't believe in her abilities. And somehow that makes her horny. So the next day, she's back at it, talking to Oro. She like closes her eyes and she tries to imagine the darkness meeting light, what it would look like, what colors it would make. And then she just kind of like sits up and she goes, what if where the darkness meets the light is not a place, but a time? Literally like dawn or dusk. And it makes sense why he wouldn't have found it before, because he can only come out during the night. So he wouldn't have been able to see it at a dawn or dusk. So then they start talking about, you know, what's gonna happen when the realms are united, and when they solve this whole thing. Like they're feeling very hopeful right now. She says, I'm not sure the people of Lightlark would be thrilled to have the wildlings return. They will have to learn to be, Oro said. His voice was so firm. She glanced at him. He met her gaze. And perhaps you would want to stay. I was like, this bitch. Ah! And of course she's like, perhaps, but it's a lie. So then she tells Oro about the proof of Celeste. My cat. Of Oro killing Celeste. Just his ass looking up in the air. Say hello. And goodbye. Or stay here. I don't know what you want. What do you want from me? She tells Oro that she thinks Azul poisoned Celeste. Oro's like, he wouldn't do that. Like, that's just not something that he would do. Azul has never wanted to hurt another ruler. He has never even tried to form an alliance. So they see the bird. Remember the blue bird that belongs to Cleo? And they immediately begin to follow it. And she recalls the Oracle's words. The Oracle's words were, the heart is closer than you know. And so they're like, wait a second. Was the heart always where the oracles were the entire time? They find the bird and then she goes, okay, we're gonna wait here until dawn. So they find a cave, they go in the cave, they start a little fire, and Isla hurts herself on a pointy stick. And she says, it's unreasonably sharp. And Oro laughs, like genuinely laughs. And then he doubles over. The moon isle begins to shake. Now, Lightlark is having another fit. So he's in like a bunch of pain. And she keeps asking him, are you okay? Like, what should I do? Like, I don't... Yeah, like, she feels completely helpless because he's in all of this pain. Lightlark is literally crumbling and she has no idea how to help him. And so he asked her to sing for him. This is the last time her singing comes into play. And so she does. She sings for him. And when she stops, he's like, why did you stop? And she's like, because of that. In the rising light, Isla noticed something. Right below the nest, something was floating in the air, untethered to gravity. Is that an egg? She asked. The egg falls, plunges to the ground, and cracks open. From the shell emerged a shining gold yolk. Yeah, that's right. The heart is a yolk. Yep. You heard me right. It rose from the ground in tandem with the rising sun. from the horizon just across the cliff. The full egg represented the moon, she said, her voice hoarse from singing. The yolk is the sun. How many times had she thought the full moon looked like an egg, and that the sun looked yolky? Of all the amazing, incredible things that you could have made this heart to be, like an actual beating heart or something, you chose an egg. Oro watched the floating yolk in its discarded shell with such awe, she wondered if he might sink to his knees. He met her gaze and smiled so brightly it was as if the sun itself was shining straight through his skin. He swept her up in his arms and spun her around. She laughed, so close to crying in relief that her eyes prickled, her lungs burned. She was immediately flooded with his heat down through her bones. A moment later, she was back on her feet. Go ahead, wildling. Get our heart, he said. Then, suddenly, an arrow plunges through her chest. She choked, falling to her knees, her chin dipped, and her eyes settled on the tip of a long arrow sticking right out of her heart. A perfect hit. A roar erupted somewhere behind her. She thought it might be Oro right before the fire swallowed the forest, burning people. There were people. Vinderland, here to get revenge. Arrow still drawn. What I don't understand is they literally wanted to, like, drink her blood and, like, burn her hair. Wouldn't they want her alive for that? I don't know. Oro had killed them all in an instant. Isla clutched the heart of Lightlark with one hand. With the other, she reached up and pulled on her necklace. Grim appeared from thin air before her fingers could uncurl from the diamond. His eyes widened at the sight of her covered in blood. Please, Oro said from the cave, and Isla hardly recognized his voice. Why was he begging? Did he want her to leave the heart? Her hand went limp and the yoke fell to the ground. The last thing she saw was Oro's face fragmented into a handful of emotions, each more surprising than the last. Then she was gone. The heart had been keeping her alive. She knew that for certain when she dropped it, and the world had gone dark. But guess what? She's not dead. Guess what? She's not dead. And guess what? They saved Celeste. They used one of the wildling potions, and Celeste is awake now. And now that all of them are awake, now they're left with the choice of which realm dies. And Oro says, Grim should die. And Isla can't take it. And she is willing to put Grim before her people, before her island, before herself. And that is something that I cannot understand, because you don't know this man. And all he's done is flirt with you. And if anything, her and Oro have such a great connection that why would you throw that all away for Grim, who you just slept with once on a whim because you were feeling sad about your friend? So Isla has a theory that because on the Wild Isle, you cannot use powers there, except for wilding powers. I never mentioned that before because it wasn't important. She believes that their curses also no longer work. She tells Grim to disappear and get as close to Wild Isle as he possibly can. And because it's night and because he could literally die by going out at night, he does so and he survives. She's actually correct about it. And he goes, will you ever forgive me? For what? She asked. You asked me just minutes ago if I trusted you, when you should have asked if you could trust me. Your dream, the sexy dreams that she been having at Grim, they're memories. That's right, they're memories. She and Grim have already been in a relationship. Why does that feel so random? Why does that feel so shoved in there? Why does it feel like Alex was like, damn, I have given her and Oro so much chemistry. How can I make sure that her and Grim end up together? Aha! They were already in a relationship. You appeared in my castle 1 year ago, and you returned several times using your Nightshade relic. And she's like, I've never been to Nightshade, and this is a starling relic. It's a star stick, bitch. And he's like, no, it's not. That's a Nightshade relic. And then he says, where do you think you were before you portaled back to your room for the Sentinel? So basically, he erased her memories, sent her back, and then that's where we started the book, whereas her appearing in her room and getting ready to go to the Sentinel. So in the place of mirrors, she sees Celeste. And Celeste is holding something in her hand. And it's a giant sewing needle, as long as a dagger, sharply pointed at both ends. It was gold and part glass and glowed brightly, just as the heart had, the bond breaker. And then Celeste is like, quickly, let's just pierce our skin with this really quick, and we'll break the bond, and then no one has to die. But guess what? Guess what? When Isla pierces her hand, both Grimm and Oro like collapse behind her. Celeste says, "You were supposed to stay away from Grimm, remember? I warned you. And the King of Lightlark." I forgot to mention Isla's guardians, Terra and Poppy. Their original plan for Isla was to seduce the King of Lightlark, Oro, and then get his power and then take over. I don't think I mentioned that. But then her and Celeste were like, no, let's come up with a different plan because I don't want to do that. You were supposed to seduce him. That wasn't your plan, it was your guardians. Good thing I counted on you breaking the rules, little wildling. I really thought it would be harder, but you played your part well. These two ancient famed rulers fell at your feet like cut down stalks of wheat. Grimm was easy, he already loved you. You two have quite the history. Though, I suppose you don't remember any of it, do you? The untrusting, cruel king fell in love with a wildling? It was torture, wasn't it, King? Trying to fight it, believing yourself under her spell, not knowing that she had no wildling powers to begin with, until she told you her secret. So, both Grimm and Oro have fallen in love. And remember what happens when someone who has powers falls in love? Those powers silently transfer to that person. You kind of share those powers. There never was a bond breaker, little bird. This is a bond maker, the only enchanted device that allows a transfer of ability, created to help Sunling kings shift their power to their heirs without having to die. Isn't that right, King? Celeste, you're my friend. You wouldn't do this. Don't you understand? You beautiful, beautiful fool. You did everything I wanted, and I didn't even have to make you. And this is the part where Oro looks at Celeste and goes, "You're not Celeste. Celeste is not Celeste." Yeah, that's right, guys. Celeste is actually Aurora. You remember? Oro's brother, Egan, was supposed to marry Aurora from Starling. Yes, her. "I watched you die," he said. "An illusion, I'm afraid." "Why?" "It was revenge, wasn't it? My brother was supposed to marry Aurora, but he fell in love with someone else. Her best friend, with your ancestor." Basically, the one who died the night that the curses were made, Isla's grandmother. Okay, it was Isla's grandmother. "They meant to marry, with a ring already on my finger. I was so angry. I used my shape-shifting flair to change into a beautiful wildling and convince this fool," she looked pointedly at Grimm, "that he would have me on the night if he gave me the most beautiful flower on the island, one I knew had bloomed on the remnants of the night isle just weeks prior. The heart of Lightlark, something Egan had told me about as children. I had tracked it, intending for it to be a wedding gift. Instead, Grimm unknowingly unlocked the heart for me to use. The job was rushed. Since I had not found it for myself, I could not wield it effectively. I cursed all the realms without my really meaning to, even my own. Only I, as the curse's creator, was left unmarred." That is crazy! "I faked my death with a nightshade illusion, using the heart. You saw me die. But the person who truly perished was my heir, my foolish sister. I took on her identity, her face. Then when I formed the Starling Newland, I forbade attendance in the castle. I led from afar. Keeping secrets is easy in a realm where everyone dies at 25. I became a new Starling ruler every sentinel, and all the while biding my time, planning, waiting. I wished to rule all 6 realms. Gaining access to all of Lightlark's power proved difficult. Even with a new face, a new personality, every sentinel, you always rejected my advances. An untrusting king indeed. Egan had told me about the bond maker, and I began searching for it every sentinel. Even if I was able to trick you, King, into using it with me, I would just receive 4 of the 6 abilities. A ruler can only use the bond maker to gain ability once and lose the ability once. I needed a way to get all 6 powers in one go. And that's where you come in, little bird. And then Grimm starts acting suspicious because Aurora seems to be talking about something or gonna spill a secret, and he's like, don't. And she goes, years ago, one of Grimm's powerful curious generals stole one of his relics and used it to visit the wildling New Land. There he met a beautiful wildling, and though forbidden in every way, would you believe they fell in love? The Nightshade General was powerful, so powerful, he thought he could subdue the wildling's curse, keep it at bay. And he did. She smiled at Isla. Long enough for them to have you. Isla shook with rage. No. Yes, Isla. You're not only wildling, but also Nightshade. She shook her head. I'm powerless. Aurora laughed. On the contrary, little bird, you're very powerful. Your wildling abilities have simply been cloaked by your Nightshade powers, made invisible. Even though that doesn't make sense, because you can only have one ability. Oro said you can only have one ability, so I'm very confused about that. And then she exposes that Grimm has been her accomplice all along. A person's emotions have colors, apparently. Celeste had the same shade as mine. He figured my identity right away and was going to slay me, knowing that my survival meant I had spun the curses. But before he could, I told him that the only reason I kept returning to the Sentinel with a new face was because I could not rest until Egan's familial line was destroyed for good. I presented him with a plan that would kill the king without dooming everyone on the island, break the curse, and give him control of Lightlark. All he had to do was help me. I knew I didn't like Grimm for a reason. Fuck that bitch. Throw him in the trash. His voice took a desperate edge as she refused to look him in the eye. It was the most difficult decision I've ever made, Heart Eater. Knowing that succeeding meant you beguiling someone else, making you forget our story, our love. Difficult for you? His voice turned resolute. I was going to give the memories back. Once Oro loved you and you remembered you loved me, we could take all of Lightlark's powers and rule together. And once Oro was drained of his abilities and his link to the island, I would be free to kill him. You know what? Aurora's smart as fuck. Everything made sense now. Aurora had killed Juniper after he wrote them about knowing who had spun the curses, not Cleo. Azul must have figured out Celeste was Aurora and tried to stop her during Carmel. Carmel was the festival where Isla got drunk. She was quick, faster than lightning striking. Her blade was at Aurora's throat in a moment, but before she could pierce flesh, the blade shattered. Isla and Aurora met eyes. It didn't make sense. Aurora couldn't wield her abilities here. The Star-Roaring ruler laughed. The dagger you chose at the Starling shop? The one I planted there? I had enchanted it so it could never kill me should you discover my plot. Which is so strange, because how would you know that she's gonna choose that specific sword? And before Aurora can kill her, Isla reaches down her spine, where her star stick has been all along, apparently, and she teleports out. And when she meets her guardians again, or her guardian, because the other one's like in the ground turning into flowers, Poppy tells her that Celeste, or Aurora, actually tricked her and told her to kill Isla's parents, and that if she didn't, that Aurora was going to kill everyone on the island, and told her to make sure that Isla did not believe she had powers. Which is so strange to me, because you're telling me that Isla never even tried? Like, not once. She never tried. Like, she never like stood out on like a cliff or like a tree somewhere and just tried. Just once. It's strange. So Isla downs a healing elixir, a wildling elixir, literally puts on her armor, which I know would have had to take in like an hour. I know how long it takes to put on armor, but whatever. She put it on in 5 minutes, I guess, and just goes back to fight Aurora. No plan whatsoever. Literally no plan. No, nothing has changed. She literally just goes back. And Aurora's like, why did you come back? Like, you literally just came to die. So suddenly, with Grimm's reminder about the heart, she realizes that She has control of the heart now and its power. Wilding power rushed from the heart in an endless stream. Branches snapped, flying across the room. Something shined at her feet, the bond maker. She grabbed it with her other hand, sticking it in her pocket. A moment later, she was running, jumping, a foot in front of Aurora. Eyes wide, surprised, Aurora changed in an instant, features twisting until she became Celeste. Isla did not hesitate the way Aurora must have been hoping she would. She grabbed the bond maker from her pocket, stuck one of its sharp ends in her palm, and plunged the other into her best friend's heart. She just made it sound so easy. She went boop, ba-doop, boop, 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 boop. But that's just how this entire book has been this entire time. Just super easy, super to the point, no mystery, bam. And the fucking floor opens. Aurora goes diving down into the floor. Isla almost goes, but guess what? Oro has her wildling power. Isn't that crazy? So he like saves her with like a vine and just like picks her up, I guess, and saves her life. After Grimm sees that Oro has access to Isla's powers, he tries to use Isla's powers as well, but then realizes that he can't, which means that Isla has given her heart to Oro, and so Grimm just kind of like disappears, like he just dips. And so by this happening, the prophecy is fulfilled. One of the people died. The original sin, which was Aurora using the heart and making the curse, was done again because Isla used the heart. So done and done. Everything's completed. Now her and Oro are having a little moment. A moment in the sun, because now the curse is broken. He says, when you told me your secret, her not having powers, I was taken aback. For centuries, I had shunned any meaningful connection, and when for the first time I began to feel something, it was for a wildling that wasn't even trying to beguile me. Oro was so close she had to tilt her head up to meet his gaze. For a moment, they looked at each other. He opened his mouth and closed it. She did the same. Didn't know what to say. Isla, he said her name, so soft on her lips. She saw her own emotions reflected in his eyes. She reached a hand to his chest. Somewhere she could feel his power pulsing. An endless stream, gold and gleaming, sunling, skyling, moonling, starling. When Isla had used the bond maker, she returned each ruler's power through the same bridge that had allowed her to take their abilities in the first place, though she still had access. There was no armor between her and Oro's endless pool, since it went both ways. Oro pressed 2 fingers to her heart, ran them lower to the center of her chest. A vine snaked its way across the balcony and bloomed a rose. Oro plucked it, offered it to her. She stared down at the flower, a rose with thorns, just like her. It was beautiful. Vicious. Isla took it, then threw it over her shoulder clean off the balcony, and stood on her toes so her forehead touched his. What a random thing to do. Oro stilled. And you think that they're gonna kiss now? No. She thinks of Grimm, gets sad, turns around, and looks back out over the view, and then that's where the book ends. That's it. Now, just for the sake of Oro, I would read the next book, except my boyfriend already looked it up, and her and Grimm get married. And apparently for the next 2 books, it's just like a love triangle, like over and over and over. And what just doesn't make any sense to me is what I believe that only Isla and Grimm had was a sexual connection. I don't believe that they had anything more than a sexual connection, to be honest. I didn't see it. Her and Oro had so much more, but for some reason, the author keeps trying to make us believe that it's Grimm, it's Grimm, it's Grimm. It's not. And you fucked up. You fucked up by making it that Grimm is the main guy. Dude, and I've heard like people say like the next 2 books is basically just a repetition of everything before. And honestly, the way that this is written is so bad. The way that things come together is so bad. Like I said before, the worst part of this book is the way that she tries to put mystery, but there is no mystery at all. Like she tries to trick us. Oh, it's Cleo. Oh, it's Azul. Oh, dude, what happened to Azul? What the fuck happened to him? Oh my god. I do not like this book. I feel like the back seemed so interesting, but in reality, it lacked any and all depth. Any and all depth. You know what? It's a travesty. I loved Oro. I'm sure you could tell. I fucking loved him. I thought he was the best. And I already knew it was going to be Grimm without even having to look it up. I already knew it was going to be Grimm because it just is. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this and come back. Sorry. My cat is sleeping right now on my lap. He's so cute. Just for that, give a like below if you think my cat is cute. Subscribe if you want more videos. I will be making them whether you want them or not. And take care of yourself until I see you next. Don't trust your friends too much. They might be a two-faced bitch who's tricking you and trying to steal your power. So watch out. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.